Hello everyone, and I hope you had a great weekend. And in this video we're going to be taking a look at a gap analysis, and some people call this a performance analysis. And just right from the beginning, the other analyses that you've worked on are very important, as they have helped you understand what the goals of these two different companies are, along with what is actually happening. But as we look at the gap analysis, this will be very critical work in the fact that you're going to identify the gap in performance. So you'll take a look at what's actually happening versus the desired outcomes, and also the causes of that gap. So we call this gap analysis and also cause analysis. And this week we're going to be focusing in on the gap analysis, and next week we'll build on this by conducting a cause analysis. Now remember, at this point you're still solution neutral. In other words, we're not trying to recommend anything just yet. We're just trying to figure out what's happening within these two case studies. So this means we're going to be identifying the gaps of performance without yet determining how to solve them. This is discussed in the content for this week, but notice that the data are already organized for you in these two different case studies. In the real world, as you probably know, you would have had to conduct interviews, gather data, organize the different data as well, and compare the low performing and high performing stores, and also the low performing and high performing departments within the Pfeiffer case study as well. And it is important to understand that, just remember that interview data of one person represents that one person's perception. So be careful just about accepting perceptions as if they were proven facts. You'll be able to hopefully read in between the lines when you're conducting the interviews. And important, once again, not to just use what one person says as actual fact, but just take it into consideration though. Now you can see where we are within the performance improvement HPT model. You can see that we've already conducted the situational analysis, the organizational analysis, the environmental analysis. Has helped us really figure out the vision, mission, values, the goals, what's actually happening within these two different case studies, be able to look at some of the data. Now we move on to the gap analysis. Now the steps in a gap analysis are right here on the screen. So first of all, identifying and analyzing actual and desired performance, which what we've already done. Identifying the gaps, present and future, positive, neutral, or negative, between the actual and the desired performance state. I'll talk about this a little bit later in the video. Prioritizing the gaps, which is very important. Then analyzing the causes is what we will do next week when we do a cause analysis. So to answer the question of why you would want to conduct a gap analysis, so one point is to improve the actual performance state when it does not measure up to the desired performance state. So that's a reason to conduct a gap analysis. And also enhance or intensify the actual performance state when it is equal to or excels the desired performance state, which may also be called innovation. So it's not that there's just a problem and that you want to fix it. You can also conduct a gap analysis because you even want to do better than what you're already doing. So as you can see, a gap analysis really helps identify any deficiencies or proficiencies affecting the human performance. So in a previous slide, I talked about positive, neutral, and negative gaps. So some situations when that would occur, so some present gaps, present positive gaps, actual performance state exceeds the desired performance state. So present neutral gaps, actual performance state is the same as desired performance state. And then present negative gaps, actual performance state is actually less than the desired performance state. And so that's when you're taking a look at what you're actually doing and thinking about how it's impacting everything right now, right in the present. Therefore, it's called present gaps. The future gaps, so this is to think about what to expect if the trends continue. Okay, so future positive gaps, actual performance state will exceed the desired performance state. Future gaps, future neutral gaps, so actual performance state will be the same as desired performance state. And then the future negative gaps, you can see the performance will become less than a desired performance state. So you can see how identifying what you're doing now, how it's impacting now, and also looking at what you're doing now and how it's going to impact the future will also help improve an organization. Now we're going to take a look at the Angelica case study and see how this gap analysis can be applied to this case study. So here's the assignment for this week's discussion. Now it's important to understand that within this week's discussion, you will see the describe the gap in one sentence, the desired state and current state. Those are the two parts that you will fill in for the discussion. And then you'll be able to see within the directions the importance of the gap. You're going to be replying to each other about the importance of the gap. So you'll just do the first two within the discussion for this week. So let's take a look at the example one that's within this assignment. It says describe the gap in one sentence. And it's important to understand that there are many gaps within this case study. So it's not just one other one that you can describe. So we can see one of the performance in the Angelica case study can be seen variation in the degree to which staff show knowledge of the merchandise. So now, based upon that, what you'll do is jump down to the desired state and current state. I'm not going to read through this for you because you can read it on the screen here, but you can see the first paragraph is talking about the desired state. You can also see that's more than one sentence, and also using data to back up your conclusion definitely helps. As I said before, data does not lie. You really cannot argue with data. And also data doesn't have feelings either. It doesn't really care about what we feel, what we think. It's there. It's hard to argue with it. So including data in this section is very important. So we see the desired state and also the current state. Once again, using data in this can make it more powerful as well, make it more believable. So it's showing that you're not just, using a gut feeling to come to this conclusion. So you talk about the desired state of performance, the current state of performance, which should align with your sentence where you're describing the gap at the top here. So once again, these two parts that describe the gap in one sentence and also desired state and current state will be the parts that you'll fill in for the discussion. Now jumping down to the importance of the gap. Now ideally a group of people, hopefully the stakeholders in the performance improvement effort, are involved in prioritizing the performance gaps. It's a crucial part of performance gap analysis because just identifying the differences between what people are doing and what you would like them to be doing is not enough reason to take action. So really identifying the importance of the gap is important. So we can see an example right here on the screen. This gap is important, but not one of the top gaps in my view. While it needs to be addressed, I see it as being less of an immediate priority than the top gaps because dealing with those gaps is more critical to the health of the low-performing stores. This gap is not as critical to these stores' immediate stability. Moreover, addressing other gaps will help fix this one. So you can see that just prioritizing these different gaps and figuring out which ones need to be tackled first could eventually help ones later on down the prioritized list because they may be fixed already because you've already fixed one above them. So being able to prioritize the different gaps is very important. Okay, now we'll jump to the gap analysis for the Pfeiffer case study. And I'll just go over the directions for this assignment. So it says you have studied and practiced examples of identifying, describing, and classifying gaps for the Angelica case. Now identify the performance at Pfeiffer General Hospital. Identify 4 gaps and their importance. So it's important to understand you want to take a look at 4 gaps as opposed to just one like we did in the discussion. So explain which 2 gaps you consider to be the most critical gaps and why you classify them as the most critical. For the gaps that you do not classify as most critical, explain why you see them that way. And it says, note you will use this information in the cause analysis assignment next week. And if you remember, the gap analysis will help build and help lead you to the cause analysis. So we can see not only are you just doing the gap in one sentence, state and current state, but you're also describing the importance as well. Okay, so that was a step we didn't do initially until we replied to each other in the discussion, but you'll be able to see that you also need to fill out the importance of the gap through this assignment. And this concludes the video on the gap analysis. If you have any questions or concerns as you're working through these assignments, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.